Thanks, Maxim. It's great to be here. I'm super happy that I got a clicker. I mean, this is so much fun, right? This is power right here. Huge congratulations to Maxim. So on two fronts, firstly, for pulling this together, and secondly, for believing that he can keep time with a bunch of creatives, because that's never going to happen. Creatives are not able to keep time with anything. We're either too early or too late. Anyway, Maxim asked me to do a bit of a talk, and he said, "You've got to talk from the heart, talk about what drives your passion." And I usually like to get up a bunch of slides of stats and things like that. So I just kind of threw something together last night just to sort of see where we would land, tell you a bit about me and what drives my purpose. When I was a kid, I used to read books, and the books would always have this straight after the title page. And I never quite knew what it meant. You know, who's neurospicy in here? Do we have any neurospicy people? We've got a couple. Come on, most of you are. As a neurospicy person, I was always like, well, firstly, the page isn't blank. So that's a lie. And secondly, like, why is that page there anyway? When I got into screenwriting later, I kind of realized that after you write the title, it takes you about 3 months to start the first page. So I think this is kind of like an ode to screenwriters everywhere. But it really appealed to my neurospiciness. Who am I? I grew up in Australia, you can tell from the accent. Small country town called Wodonga, which was about 3.5 hours from somewhere and 7 hours from nowhere in particular. It was quite isolated. This is my bubble. You know, Mum would tell us to go and play on the streets because there wasn't many cars. That was a lot of fun. Boys and girls all had the same haircut, which was convenient and confusing. There was a lot of beige. There was a lot of beige and apparently a shortage of cotton because all the men had very tight shorts. And we used to burn fossil fuels for fun, you know. It's just like a lot of car sports and stuff like that. Also, a lot of beer. Beer. You know, Australians are well known for drinking their beer. And AFL football, where, again, you can see the tight short syndrome, which was quite prevalent in the 1980s. As a kid, I was never sporty, right? So I didn't really get into sports and I didn't really gel with the football people. And I never really liked beer. And to my disgrace as an Australian, I've probably drunk about 3 pints of beer in my life, like true fact. Just never really liked beer. However, our small country town had the hugest cinema. And it turns out at the end of World War II, after all the trauma in the world, you know, people thought, oh, it's been a little bit dark and grim, hasn't it? So they built all of these cinemas everywhere, particularly in the small country towns, where a lot of young men were sent off to war and never came back. And so we had this huge, beautiful cinema. And I mean, it was ornate, it was grand, and this was my place of escapism. And it was actually my portal out into the world. And I got to learn a lot about the world through going to the cinema. So I found my home sitting in cinemas. This is an actual photograph, not of me, but of my source of envy as a child. This kid has the entire He-Man, Grayskull castle and all the toys and everything else. I never got all of that, but my dad did give me two things which changed my life. The first was a computer, and I learned that computers could be a creative tool. So I started to code at a very young age. And he also bought a VHS recorder. These two things saved my life. So with a VHS recorder, I would sit with my brother. We would try and emulate these great feature films that we watch, you know, much to the anger of my mother. You cannot turn a family swimming pool into a Jaws set and make your sister swim in it. That was something that I got into a lot of trouble for. We struggled with long-form media, and I always loved Monty Python. We had a lot of British television in this small country town. It's like so weird for me coming back over here to Britain or back here for the first time. I used to love Monty Python. We realized that we could do short-form media a lot easier, and so we would sort of cut together a lot of different little videos and stuff like that. There was a third thing that saved my life, and it was boredom. It's a bit of a dirty word now, isn't it? No one's allowed to be bored. If you're bored, you've got to open up your phone and kind of scroll and see who's been talking to you or what you've missed out on. Boredom was the source of creativity for me, and so, you know, I ended up using boredom as a tool to create. And I learned to code, and I learned to make films. But in Australia, I didn't have any opportunities to make films. There was no peers, there was no access for me. I moved to Melbourne. Fast forward about 25 years of my life, I ended up working in executive banking, learned a little bit about finance, was always good with numbers. And I was also a technologist, so I built startups and worked in the tech sector. But in both of these, I was always trying to find my creative purpose. So when I was in the bank, I'd convince the CEO that he'd have to eat a hamburger at McDonald's in order to sell the services. I was entertaining myself most of the time. I had conservative bankers hanging out of the back of Teslas, because I'm like, this is how you're going to get their business, you know. And in technology, I moved into virtual reality and started to do a lot of VR and immersion. In the beginning, that was really cool, and then it turned more and more into business, and I find business quite boring, to be honest. And about 3 years ago, my mother died, and there's nothing like losing a parent that makes you reflect on your childhood. And I started thinking, what do I really want to do? I wanted to make films, and how am I going to make films? I can't do this in Melbourne. So I got me a global talent visa, and I wanted to come to the United Kingdom, the wonderful United Kingdom. I mean, home of some of the greatest filmmakers of all time, the mighty BBC, and some of the best politicians the world has ever seen, am I right? And so, you know, I come over here to Great Britain, and I'm going, this is it, I'm going to start my film career. This is January last year. And it's shit. Like, production's down 60 to 70%. There's no business. All the creatives are out of work. And everyone's telling me it's COVID, it's the writer's strikes, it's coming back, just hold on. And so I kind of went through last year looking at this grim landscape. And I was down in Cannes last year, and I was with a bunch of hedge fund managers. And I asked them, you know, why do you think the film and TV industry is going bad? Like, what are the risks? And they went through all the usual things. They said, you know, packaging and talent and, you know, emerging channels of fragmentation with the streamers and all this sort of stuff. And then they turned to me and they said, Keanu, because that's how I get into tables like that, I impersonate, what do you think the problem is? And I was like, it's attention span. That's the actual biggest threat to media in the world, right? And it's not just fragmentation on the platforms that are out there, it's all of this app ecosystem, and this is where everyone's attention is going. You've only got so much time in your day and in your life, and people's attention is being spread across all of these. And so we live in this kind of attention deficit era, right? And that is the biggest threat to anybody that wants to make medium and long form stuff. There's about 34 million videos on TikTok daily. Don't know if you know these stats. 272 videos per second being generated. That's just one platform out there, right? And so in the time that I've been talking, there's probably been about 100,000 new videos published on TikTok. That's where part of your audience is if you're a filmmaker, and it's a real challenge. The media environment, it's defined by abundance, fragmentation, and distraction, and of course the goal is people's attention and focus, and how do you get that? Turns out that Netflix still does it well, streaming video platforms still does it well, but if you look at the stats, people spend about half as much time on TikTok. And I'd actually argue the fact that people use TikTok and stuff while they're watching Netflix and things like that. So you just got this increased fragmentation of audience. And we now have the emergence of vertical dramas and micro-episodics. Does everyone know what they are? Yeah. So, you know, micro-episodic films. And so, you know, you've got even more platforms and more fragmented attention. And I was sitting there at the end of last year, and I was kind of like, I'm in real trouble here, right? I'm too old for TikTok, and I'm a bit too late for the golden age, because I always wanted to make cinema films, and you know what's going on here. And all I get to inherit is the lovely English weather, which it is quite charming, really. It's absolutely lovely. I don't know how you people survive with only 4 days of sunlight a year. Anyway, I was sort of thinking about that, and then I went back to my childhood, and I kind of thought, well, what was I doing as a child? And it turns out that what's going on now is not too dissimilar to what was going on back then. It's just like platforms and things are changing, right? So we've gone from boredom to hyper-distraction. But the thing is, the mechanisms of them work the same. See, people that are bored want to be creative, and people that are hyper-distracted want to be creative. And so the mechanisms are the same. And we have a fan participatory culture, right? Fans want to be creators. That's what this is all about. And so you think about that in terms of what's going on in the landscape, and these platforms aren't necessarily your enemy. They're actually something that you can use and leverage, and you have to start thinking about it when you actually design the IP. So there's no elephant in the room. I mean, the elephant is really the piece of thing that you want to create in the middle. It's the tentpole, and this is a circus. And all of those things are distractions. And your goal is to work out, how do I use all of those things in order to pull that attention in to that central piece of IP. And what does that look like? It looks like create a film, create a series, whatever it is, but then also create content for all the other channels where your audience is in the format that is most useful for that channel to enable that audience to grow and then come back into the tentpole, right? You have to be thinking about that. when you're creating your content from the outset. So about 15 years ago, I wrote this comedy short film called Malfunction. It was about droids in a shopping mall just going nuts, dealing with human insanity. And late last year, I just picked it up again and I thought, yeah, this would make a great TV series. And AI is really relevant now, and started to workshop it and redevelop it. And it's funny, that was going to be a short film, and I thought, I'll get the money, I'll shoot the film, do some festival circuits and blah, 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 traditional film. Started to develop it into a TV series, and then started thinking about how do we actually maximize all those channels that are going on. So in the casting, we're thinking about what is the audience those people have, and what does content look like in Malfunction with that cast and crew going out into those channels. It's TikTok, it's Instagram, custom made for that channel in a way that resonates with the audience on that channel. So authenticity, hyper-real content, etc. Microgaming, a whole bunch of other different things. And sorry, just back on that previous slide. The three things that really drive all of this, right? Transmedia. Your IP has to sit on all the different channels and has to look different on every channel. It can be on Apple TV, but it has to have a TikTok life, it has to have an Instagram life, it has to have all these different little bits of content, and it has to be right for those. User-curated content, invite your fans to be creators. And this is where generative AI is super, super interesting, right? Because generative AI means that fans with a few words can create in your ecosystem. And so your goal here is to use AI with your fans to be able to create new content within the ecosystem of your story world or your story idea, and they become super fans, super creators, super promoters, and of course you're always driving them back to the tentpole, right? So you use all of this tech, you use all of these distractions, you use hyper distraction in order to pull people in. And you still have that traditional thing that you want to make in the middle. And that could be a TV series or a feature film or a short film. Don't just focus on that though. So yeah, in closing, with Malfunction, I'm casting a model to be one of the droids because she's got 4 million followers, and it's quite funny how we're going to pivot her into the series. But then she can also reach a different audience for the film. And if we build the audience through all this hyper distraction, then we can pull them to a platform, and that's more attractive to Apple or Netflix or wherever we're going to sell it to. And I think I'm out of time, so I'm just going to go cheers.